Hey everybody, it's Ryan. Welcome back to Eggs the Podcast. Today's special guest is Kayvon Kay, founder of The Sales Connection. Kayvon, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for making time to be here.
Yes.
Yeah, why don't you give us a brief overview of who you are and what you do? I know sales is pretty much your thing, but can you define that a little more for us?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we founded the Sales Connection, me and my business partner, and essentially what we do is we build remote sales teams, sales departments, operations, reporting, everything that you can think about when it comes to a virtual sales department. We build that for businesses. Prior to that, we actually built a sales training company that went from 0 to 38 million in 18 months, and that was 7 days before I was bankrupt.
Wow.
But prior to that, I've 25 years of sales experience now. My entire career has always been sales. I always tell people, I mean, they ask me, when did I know I was a salesperson? And I always say basically in kindergarten, when I was written off by the school system, told that I was, never going to make it, ADD, ADHD, LD, learning, reading, writing, math, like what was left? Phys ed. So since that day, I've been selling my dreams, selling my way, selling my future, selling my ideas, my inspiration, all of that. And it's always just been part of who I am.
Do you mind, can you pull that mic down just a little bit? We're getting like a little pop off of it. I think it's
good to know. Thank you. Yeah.
No worries.
Let me turn that down.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Is that better there?
Yeah. Much better. What's your what was your first sales gig?
My very first sales gig was watching my uncle when I was 11, 12, 13, and he used to work on a sales furniture store.
Okay.
The local little small town, he ended up actually working as a salesman and owning it himself one day. But I remember being on the sales floor with him every Saturday, Sunday. He was kind of my babysitter. And at that point I was watching him sell, and he kind of showed me what it took to be a charismatic salesperson, how to sell with relationships and just connecting versus just selling, products and features. Then what happened was I always had that knack for sales, and then I ended up getting my own retail job selling shoes. That was my very first gig, and then from there, we've been in 5-6 different sectors. But my last corporate sales job was I was the number one pharmaceutical sales rep for one of the largest companies in the world.
Okay.
Pharma sales, yeah. Before I kind of left the corporate world and started my own thing.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that transition too then. So, yeah. Just on sort of the entrepreneurial tip, and we can get more into sales stuff as we go. Yeah. But, obviously that's a big change, right? Taking the risk of going from a sort of a regular paycheck. I guess it was probably commission driven or whatever, but a steady check to all of a sudden going out on your own. Was that your first attempt at entrepreneurship?
That was my first real attempt to entrepreneurship. And it was, it was scary. There's many reasons most people don't do it. Because it's scary. How do you walk away from a $250,000, $300,000 job, working 1 day a week, company car, the credit card, all of it? It was a fake luxury lifestyle. And why I say fake was this was even back then. I can't even imagine today. So this was back in 2014, 15. I moved down to Vancouver, one of the richest cities in the world, and making $300,000 a year, you realize how actually poor you are. And I knew that if I was ever going to live a life of the significance that I wanted to live and live a life that was above average, that I wasn't going to be one of those types of guys. I was I'm just going to work and save my dollar, and by the time I'm 45 or 50 or whatever it is, maybe I'll have enough to enjoy life. So I had to make a real decision, because even looking at my trajectory in corporate, I'm like, what's the max a good CEO makes in Canada? Maybe $400,000 or $500,000 a year. I wanted to become a millionaire, right? So I do tell people I was lucky and fortunate to have this change and move when I think I was like 30, 31. I didn't have a family at that time, so sure, it might be a little easier, but it was still, my God, it was scary, because again, I come from humble beginnings, so there was nobody that was saving me from this decision. And the reason I needed it, the reason I really wanted to do it, was I was so done with the corporate world. I felt like I was in school again. It literally felt like I was back in school. The politics, the drama, the bureaucracy. I was the number one sales rep in the country. I blew everybody away by 31% of my commission, like of my budget, 31%. And at the end of the year, they give out this huge award, which was like an extra like $10,000 cash, which at that time is a lot of money to me. And the most important was I got to take a guest onto like, a 5-star luxury. I mean, we're talking like $30,000-$40,000 per person type of trip. So I told my manager at the beginning of the year, I was like, this is the year I'm going for it. And she's like, I know. And sure enough, technically I won it. Well, at the end of the year, when they went to go, I was at the awards event, and when they went, and everyone's shaking my hand because everyone knew the numbers. Numbers don't lie, right? Shake my hand as if before I won it. Oh, congratulations! And when they announced the name, they didn't announce Kayvon Kay. What? Why? Well, what? Is this wrong? No. Well, they didn't like the way I wore my pants. They did not like the way that I wore my pants. They were too tight for the old boys club, for the old shitty loose suits, white shirt, shitty ass tie, looked like a fat fuck. Sorry, do you guys swear on here?
You're all good. Yeah.
Sorry, like a slob, right? They didn't like the fact that I had nice color and that I was dressed sharp. And they said they didn't want me to be the representation of the company. That was my... the straw that breaks the camel's back, that was it for me. I just knew if that happens here, that happens everywhere. And now I hear stories about how it does. So I knew that I was like, I'm not doing this. There's no way that I'm living my life like this. I got to live it on my own terms. And that's so at some point, you just got to make the decision. Now, here's what's really important about this story. A year before this, I tried building a business. I was like, I wanted to do some second income stuff. And at the end of the year, there was no business. And the reason why was because every time something became challenging or became hard, or that what I call, most people run away from, mental toughness, like that mental laziness, like I have to actually sit down and critically think and actually do something that's not that's easy to me. I would just say, I'll just do it tomorrow because I had that comfy check, right? I'll just do it tomorrow. And again, lucky enough, I was smart enough after a year. I'm like, well, that didn't work. So I had to cut the tie. Some people could break, right? Some people couldn't possibly fathom actually taking that leap and cutting the tie. I personally believe you will never get to success if you don't truly do that.
Yeah, it's kind of critical, actually. Both Ron and I have been in that position where we cut the tie, but not intentionally. It just kind of happened. So now we have to either shit or get off the pot kind of thing. And it really lights a candle under you and gets you going if you have nothing else coming in. So
the problem is people have plans, right? They got plan B, they got plan C, they got plan D. So when plan A starts going sideways, what do? They go to easy plan B, plan C. I don't have plan B or C. I got plan A. That was it. I had one plan. And I was going to do whatever it took to get there, hence the bankruptcy. Yeah. I was willing to go bankrupt.
Well, and I think that's a good point. I mean, like in my own experience, like Mike was alluding to, I was just working in-house as a graphic designer. And because of a layoff, I'd been doing some freelance work on the side or whatever, but because of a layoff, it was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I have to make this work now. I've got a young kid at home and we're married and we've got a house payment and hey, I got to make a living. So, so all of a sudden you start to build that business that, you were, letting, kicking down the road or whatever, or would have, in my case, I would have never been brave enough or bold enough to take the step. Right.
And I love that I appreciate you for admitting to that, because most people won't even admit to that. They won't. They sit there. Oh, I'll build a business. Going to do it tomorrow. Well, no, they won't even admit to themselves. They're just too scared. And I don't blame them. It is scary. Shit. And it's hard. And it sucks. And you're actually going to get beaten up way more than you'll celebrate. But that's the price you pay to be a business owner. That's the price you pay for freedom, to have more money than most people make in a lifetime.
So you quit a $200K a year job or more
plus,
whatever, and start this business. What is this business? What
yeah, well, that's now you want to bring all the embarrassment.
I'll sell myself.
So it's funny, I had like 4 failing businesses in that 1 year, and it was just. What I saw this trend of the internet marketing influencer kind of coach, industry. And I saw this trend happening. And this was 13, 14, like 2014, 15. So there was already, there was already the people that started in the 08 and 09. But I knew in my heart, I was like, I wasn't late. It was late, but I wasn't super late. Not like people trying to get in today, right? So I was like, this is an opportunity for me to get in there because that's all I kind of knew. So it's all I really went down. That's all I started to learn and study and try to understand was like marketing funnels and all this stuff. And needless to say, the first one was like Kayvon University, right? And then there was like Epic Life. It was all these different types of products that I was trying to sell, mostly my brand, right? Like being a marketer. And what happened was I just kept investing dollars in, people promised me this, people promised me that, the courses, this, that. And next thing you know, a year later, I was $150,000 in debt. I was 7 days away from bankruptcy. I had like no idea what I was going to do. But I knew I was not going to give in. Like there's just no way that I could go back to the corporate world. Like what a failure that would have been. So what happened was when I was literally standing in line, trying to wait and to be like, all right, this is it. Let me go sign bankruptcy. I remember the books I read. I remember like in the books of success and like Think and Grow Rich, it tells you like there's going to be moments that like you are going to be put on the line. You're going to be pushed. You're going to be like, you're going to have all the reasons why you need to quit. You don't quit. You keep moving forward. So I was thinking to myself, this must be that time. This has to be that time. So instead of moving forward in line, I moved backwards, left the bank, and I kind of started walking home and thinking, well, what am I going to do? So I went online and I was like, okay, I need to find a mentor here in Vancouver because all these mentors online, they didn't give a shit. They all been stealing my money. I need someone I could see in person. And sure enough, found a mentor and had a call with him. And he says, yeah, I can help you. $30,000. I'm bankrupt. I don't have $30,000, but give me 3 days. Why? Because my dream of me becoming the man I wanted to be was it was more powerful than my fear of failure. So what happened was I did what the books tell you. Pick up the phone. What did we read about? Like, Kentucky Fried Chicken. How many no's did he have? You hear all these stories. Well, why can't that be my story? Luckily for me, it was only 27. 27 people I called. On the 27th, which was an old pharmacist at the time, I said, hey, listen, here's my dream. Here's what I've been doing. I've been failing. You know how it is as a business owner. I need 30,000. Would you be willing to, lend it to me? And on the 27th, the guy's like, I've always believed in you, Kayvon. No problem. Here. Next day, send it to me. Next day, I send it to the mentor. The mentor comes to me and goes, you know what your problem is? I'm like, what? He's like, you're not a marketer. You're a salesperson.
Yeah, there's a difference.
I just gave you $30,000 for you to tell me that I'm a fucking salesperson. I know I'm a salesperson. I spent 25 years in sales. I didn't, you know what I mean? So what I didn't know, because you don't know what you don't know, is that, well, now that's what my business is built off of, right? Is high ticket sales. Is instead of being the guy that's worried about the Facebook ads and the funnels and the copies and the email and the content, he said, just go, instead of trying to be the man, go close for the man. And I said, what? That's a thing? 2 days later, found a job. Resourceful, right? You don't lack resources, you lack resourcefulness. I had nothing. So I was on. So I went on a Facebook group. Someone said high ticket sales, applied for the job, didn't know it was actually someone of significance. $20,000 offer. Within 30 days, I was making 30 grand. Before that, 25 days before that, I was losing $25,000 a month trying to pay for people to do my ads and my copy, all that, all those expenses, how fast that can add up. 30 days later, I was making $30,000, zero expenses. I was like, oh my God, this is phenomenal. And then the next month, 40 and 50. And about 3-4 months after, the same mentor came to me and said, do you think we can teach this? I said, hell yeah, we can. And he said, okay, great. You go build it. I'll do the marketing and you do everything else and we'll make this happen. Little did we know, we had plans of doing like a couple $100,000 a month. 18 months later, we were $38 million. Wild.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Trained over, we had over 15,000 sales. Like, we were training 15,000 people in over 100 different countries.
Oh, wow.
Ended up becoming a marketer.
Well, it's incredible, but there's one thing in there that I want to maybe focus a little energy on, and maybe we can just talk about for a second, which is this sort of notion. I'm not sure what to call it. I don't want to call it manifesting or anything spiritual or weird like that, but it's like there's this phenomenon of the squeeze, which is shit's gone really bad. We're getting crushed. I have to make a decision, but somehow I overcome anyway. And what's interesting about it, so like in your situation, you were down to your last dollar, you were ready to sign away your life on this bankruptcy deal, and then you picked up the phone, you made those 27 calls. Theoretically, you could have made those 27 calls a year prior. You could, I mean, there was nothing new in what you did, right? Outside of the fact that you were forced into a box where you had to innovate. And I think that there's something to that. And I don't know how we can, maybe label this or, turn it into something that people can use. But this is a situation that I think a lot of people feel, which is I'm up against the wall. I'm going to miss my bills this month. I'm going to, whatever it is, right? Whatever their situation is. But there's this superhuman ability to overcome that stuff if you let it happen. Right.
If you let it happen, I think a little bit of it is that burning desire within, number one. For me, again, I can't express this enough. Like, I don't have mommy and daddy that were saving me. I didn't have friends that were saving me. Like, it was me alone. Like, so what are your options? Like, if even logically, what were my options? Most logic people would be like, oh, well, just go to work, spend another 20 years paying back the debt you just put yourself into, I at that point, I'm like, no, like I've already missed this boat of save every penny. And what I learned in that year too is save a penny at the end of the day. It's just a fucking penny. You don't get rich by saving money. You get rich by making money. So I go, okay, well, you're never going to make money if you're working for someone. So like for me, it was just like, it wasn't even an option. It was a burning desire in me. The success that I had in my eyes that I wanted in my future that I knew to be true, just didn't know how to get there. Had no idea what it was going to be. I just had a burning desire to know that I'm capable of it. I'm deserving of it. It's fucking Bob next door has it. Why can't I have it? Does Bob know something I don't know? So I just got to go figure out what the hell that is. And we're still figuring out every single day what the hell that is, right? Like you never get to the answer. It's always just, it's an ever game of learning. But I don't know what you would call that. I call that like no options. I call that back against the wall. And this thing is, there's two different peoples in this situation. People with their back against the wall who thrive, and they actually only thrive ever when their back's against the wall. That's when they do their best work. And then the other people are the ones that break. They fall, they quit, they break, they end up like, you know what I mean? They're done. It's like, it's over. Bye-bye.
Well, and so I'll give you in my own life, I mean, luckily I haven't been so pressed in a situation, to be up against the wall of bankruptcy, but there's been no doubt that there's been times of financial difficulties, or whatever going on in life. Right. And I've always said, and, this is sort of my light take on it, which is anytime I get in a situation like that, I sort of just put out into the universe that I need something, and it sort of tends to come back around. Right. But what's really happening on the back end isn't that there's like some little fairy flying around to everybody I know. But what it is it's encouraging me, or it's making me do the work, right? Like all of a sudden I am picking up the phone calls. All of a sudden I am shooting out emails. All of a sudden I am reaching out to, old leads or past customers or whatever. I'm all of a sudden very resourceful. And so I guess what I'm trying to get to in the spirit of maybe turning this into something that people could apply in their own lives, because I think you're right. And it hadn't even occurred to me that some people would break under this pressure. And I suppose that's true. Some people will leave.
Well, they do. I've seen it, right? They break and they actually sign it, they quit, and they go back to work and they live a miserable life and they wonder why they're miserable.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, maybe it's just my ego that didn't see that. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that there is something in us that, we're reacting to an outside force, which is causing this problem, or it's maybe the bed we made, which is we're broke and we're bankrupt and we're trying to figure this out. But there's something in us that isn't really magic, that isn't really unique, that we could actually apply anytime, but for whatever reason we don't. And so I'm wondering if there isn't a way that we can look at this situation and then maybe pull something out of it, which is how could we apply the things that we do under that pressure, but apply those things anytime? Does that make sense?
Well, you go back to the basics. You start doing the things that are hard that nobody wants to do. Like you said, you start picking up the phone. You start working on the things that actually move the needle, not the things that are easy that you think will one day move the needle. What I mean by that, right, is it's so easy for us to go to the things that we love and work on the things that we're naturally good at. And then we get mentally lazy, or we kind of procrastinate on the things that we're not good at. Sometimes those things that we're not good at are the things that the business needs, or the things that we need for our success. We're just not willing to do them. And, in sales is like picking up the phone and dialing dollars. People are rather wait 3-6 months to figure out marketing versus just pick up the phone. The easiest, fastest way to cash, pick up the phone and dial for dollars. I remember, one of the best advices I've got from a mentor, there's two things that came out to me. First one was, I lived by this. I lived by this golden rule for so many years. It was, what are you willing to do in the next 3 to 5 years that most people won't, in order to live a life that most people will never have? What are you willing to do? Most people are not actually willing to do what it takes. They're not actually willing to do the things that make the hard decisions. How many people, like, you know, me 40-year-olds that I know, 50-year-olds that I know that are still living under mommy and daddy's spell? Meaning they're still looking for the validation. Mommy and daddy say, I got to work this job. So I'm going to work at this job. Mommy and daddy said I shouldn't buy a car. I should save my money. So I'm not going to buy that car. And yet they want to do life of greatness. Like, you got to outlive your parents, man. You got to outshine your parents. I don't care if your parents are even wealthy or not. If your parents are wealthy, great, outshine them, right? Like for me, I didn't have that big of a bar. Loving mom and dad, they did the best they could with the circumstances they had. But like I knew very quickly at a young age that I was not subscribing to that story, not under my watch, right? And then then I said that it's the little things. It's those little things that people don't want to do. So in my case, like, dude, did I want 30 days prior to have to make that phone call? Hell no. Why would I want to make that call? Like those calls suck. They're hard. There's many other things I can convince myself that are more important. But when it came to it, I had no option. I had to make those calls. And sure enough, what happens? You get the success. An example. I'll give you an example. You see this and because I used to be a sales trainer, so I used to say this in real estate offices. So January is always a funny time for real estate agents. Why? Because what do they do in December? They took December off, they spent all the money, and then they got all these bills. So what happens is they come into January, they start getting their credit card bills. Like, what do I got to do? Oh my God, I got to go to work. So what do they start doing? They start going out there, they start prospecting. So they start calling. They start doing the business, right? And then all of a sudden their business starts to grow. January, February, houses start turning into deals, right? Then what do we got? March, April, all of a sudden they go, okay, well, I made my money. What do they take? They take a vacation. And then they come back at the end of the vacation and they go, oh my God, I got my bills. And they do this up and down. And then at the end of the year, they decide, I don't want to be a real estate agent. I want to be a mortgage broker, as if it's going to be the grass is green on the other side. And why? It's because they stopped doing the thing that got you busy. And that's what most people do. You stop doing the one thing that got you busy, because what got you busy is not always fun. It's not always easy. It's challenging. And we think that we've outgrown it. We think we're better than that. I see a lot of business owners, even people in my situation where, like, I'm in sales. I have a whole team that should take my calls, but I still take sales calls because I, don't want to lose it, right? Because if you don't use it, you lose it. And B, I got to lead, as you know, and be an example. And more important than three is I want to still be able to control my income. I'm not going to rely just on others to control my income. I got to do that hard work. I don't enjoy it all the time, but I do it because I know it's necessary.
I used to be a mortgage officer.
There you go.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
And when I first got into it, it was easy. Like, it was right in the time frame, 2006, 2007, before the crash. Yeah. And everyone had 8, 9, 10% interest rates, and we were doing streamlined refinances for VA home loans. And 90% of the time I could call them up and say, hey, you got a VA loan. We're going to hook you up. We're going to drop you from 8% down to 4.5%, because that was the deal right there, and cut their mortgage payment in half, get them a little cash on the end. I'll get my 2 points. It'll be a great deal all the way around. Right. 2008 comes around, dries up, goes completely empty.
Blows up.
Everyone had already kind of done the refi thing. Everyone had kind of gotten settled in, and the only income coming in would be from new home buys. And so this, where I could have a list and just call people and get them into it, that doesn't work anymore. So for me to get income coming in, I had to go and network with realtors. I had to go to meetings. I had to go and do all this stuff that I wasn't having to do before. But if you want to stay in that industry, that's what you got to do. And
you have to do, like, again, doing the things you don't want to do, right? What are you willing to do? Most people won't. In order to live a life most people will never have. Most people at that point left the mortgage industry because it was like, what happened was you were on a trend. Trends are easy. And this goes back to being a character. This goes back to entrepreneurship. This goes back to having character, my sports day. Winning the game when things were easy, having character is pretty easy when you're winning the game. Real character is built when you've lost the game. It's when it's you by yourself on the field, when everyone's gone home. And what happens is people get into these trends. Like, so that was a trend in 06, 07. You can come in, you can be an idiot and still made millions of dollars. But what happens when that trend stopped? And now the real work happens. How many people left that industry? Because they were not actually willing to do the work, and they didn't even know the work, and they didn't even know how to become professional. They didn't know actually how to build a business. They just got into an awesome trend. They saw an awesome trend, something was easy, but trends don't last forever.
Yeah.
So what happens after the trend goes away?
One of the guys that left. So because it was the day job. It wasn't my passion. You know, it wasn't something I was really into. And so once it dried up, I wasn't. Huh? Had I stuck around, I'd probably be a lot better off these days. But you know, it's like,
you know, in hindsight,
it was the trend. Yeah, you know.
But you didn't stick around because you're like, frig, I didn't have to do all this hard work. I'm assuming I didn't have to do all this hard work last year. Man, this is a lot of hard work. And you said the big key is you're not passionate.
Yeah.
And if you're not passionate, how are you going to find energy? When you have a burning desire and when your vision is so clear of what you want, you don't need coffee, you don't need Red Bull and Monster, because your vision will outrun all of those things. But if your vision or your clarity or your whatever your passion isn't clear and you're not running off that fuel, that's when you burn out. That's why you need, you figure out things start not working because you're not in alignment. There's so many things that give us reasons to leave. So I shouldn't say things. What are things? There's so many business opportunities. There's so many investment opportunities. There's so many different layers of business and avenues that I can run down on any given single day to try to increase my income. But I know that if I'm not passionate about it, number one, or it's not my forte, number two, or it's not like something that I even want to put time or energy into, it doesn't matter if John's making millions doing it. I'm not going to make millions doing that because it's not my alignment. It's not in alignment with who I am. It's not for me. And a lot of people don't know that. Like that goes to the whole grass is greener on the other side. I'm sure you guys heard this. The grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is green on the side you fucking water. Most people are not even watering the side they're on. They're just watching Joe water his, mow his, water his, take care of his, and go, well, that looks good. I want his. Even if you went over there, you wouldn't have green grass because you wouldn't water it, you wouldn't mow it, and you would let it fucking die.
Well, and it's not just watering it. It's aerating it. It's thatching it. It's adding seeds. It's adding, the nutrients it needs. It's a project, not just a AstroTurf that you lay down once and it's there for.
No, well, and that's what people want. The easy. You just say lay down AstroTurf and never have to look, worry about it, and it's green every single day.
Yeah.
Well, and that's actually a good metaphor for what you were saying earlier, right? Talking about what are you willing to do? Because there is the version of it that Mike just described, very technically, which I wish my neighbors were listening and, would take care of their lawn a little bit. But then there's the version of people that are just sort of, maybe we could call AstroTurf the trend, right? I mean, this is people sort of just doing the easy version of it. And that'll get you by for a while. You're going to have great AstroTurf and it's going to last until the sun beats it to death in 20 years. And then you're going to have to replace it. But that's the easiest version of owning a lawn. And so, but the result you get is probably not near as satisfying as the guy who spent all day out really hard, working on his lawn and spending the time, nurturing these plants and helping it, grow. And then, being able to stand back at the end of the day and just cross his arms and go, you know what, damn it, my yard looks awesome.
So I'm going to give you an example too, a real example of that in business. So when I was younger, because again, didn't come from a lot of money, I always had this dream, right? I had this dream that I was going to marry a rich girl and her dad is going to be in business and he's going to take me under his wings and show me the ropes so that I can do the same. Because I always wish I had that, right? And I remember telling you got to understand, I had conviction underneath that more than a courtroom. Like that was the dream, okay? And I remember when I first met my first mentor, like 22, 23, and I was telling him, this is what I'm going to do, And I've been feeding myself this story since I was like 9 or 10 years old, right? And I remember him just shaking his head like it was in disgust. And he looked at me and he's just like, you don't want that. And I'm like, it was the first time someone ever said that to me. What do you mean I don't want that? And he said, I'll tell you why. He goes, because at any given day, any given time, it can be taken away from you. You go down that path, you will not sleep, and you won't have one nice sleep when you're 40 or 50 because it can be taken away like that. He said, but you go build it yourself. And I'll tell you, it's going to be hard. And you won't get there as fast as you want, and you won't get there as fast as someone was going to give it to you, but you'll get there. And when you do, nobody can take it away from you because it's yours.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot.
And I was like, that was a wake up. I was like, whoa.
Well, it's funny. And I just kind of wanted to add on to that too, this idea that, dreaming our dream, setting our goals, identifying what's actually our dream versus the dream of others. Right. And I think this is especially pertinent today, like with social media and all that stuff. It's really easy to get caught up in what other people are doing. Yeah. Right. Whether it's looking at the neighbor's yard and being jealous and wanting that grass is always greener kind of attitude. But, and maybe it's just amplified by social media, but there's, I think, a component of this where it's, you have a vision in your mind, or you created a dream around what you're looking for that's based on hitting some certain endpoints, having some financial stability, married to some hot chick, all the things that you're looking for in life. But the reality is that might not really be your dream as much as it is, maybe the end of your dream, right? Like you're busy dreaming somebody else's dream, which is, oh, well, I want in your life. I want you've already got the money. You've already got all this stuff. I want your dream, your life. Yeah. Instead, you're not really focused on what it is that you really want or what you really need to achieve that.
Well, because most people don't. Most people actually don't even know what they really want. They think they know what they want, but they don't actually know what they truly want. Well, and they don't know what they're willing to fight for it either.
Yeah, and that was sort of what I was maybe hoping to get into with you a little bit, is trying to parse out some of this stuff, right? Sure. Trying to identify goals that are meaningful to us and uncover our passion in a world that's so messy, right? Where we're really wrapped up in what's happening everywhere else and not paying that much attention to what's happening in our own backyard. And so I wonder if you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I do. I got a lot of thoughts because, again, I've gotten coaching on it myself. And one of the things that it's funny is most people say, I want 20 million, I want 30 million, and because I want to live this lifestyle, right? Whatever it might be, right? And then if you actually speak to them and you break it down, you realize they don't even actually know what they like, how much money they actually need to live the lifestyle they want. So I always tell people, like, if you have a vision of the lifestyle you want 10 years from now, whatever, 5 years from now, yesterday, whatever it is, write down in detail all the things that you actually want. And then you go and you actually figure out what the price is for all these things. And you'll actually realize that you don't need as much money as you think you do to live that lifestyle you want. Because at some point, as you guys know, it's just become, that's when people say, and I hate when people say this, money doesn't bring you happiness. That poor people say that, or such rich people who are miserable. They've always been miserable say that. But reality is bullshit. Money can bring you happiness because you know what? I've had poor people's problems. I've had rich people's problems, and I would take rich people's problems any single day over poor people's problems. Fact. And money doesn't make you an asshole. You're like, money amplifies who you are.
You're already an asshole. Just now you're an asshole with money.
Like you're just like, I grew up, I'm not going to mention a name, but I grew up with a kid who was an asshole at 10, 11, 12. I mean, a prick. One of those pricks you hate, but you still like. You for some reason has this magnetism to him, right? And he was fortunate in life and built a $120 million company. And he became the biggest asshole of all time. And people are like, oh, he's changed ever since he's been, had money. I'm like, no, he hasn't. He's the same prick as he always been. He just is allowed to be more of a prick because he has more options to be a prick with and to do, right? Like, it's like, don't confuse those things, right? And now we're talking money, but happiness isn't just always about money too. It's about relationships, right? Like people are happy with a good husband, a good wife, have a relationship with your kids. You got to figure out what that is and what you want. Most people don't know what it is. They haven't actually I'll go a little deep here. They haven't sat down and asked those questions to themselves and to us, you want to call it the universe, whatever, and ask the questions, what is it that I really want? What is it that inspires me? How do I be great? How do I become the best version of myself? And sit long enough till they hear the answer.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And I just kind of want to add on too. So I did do an exercise kind of like what you're talking about in terms of sort of trying to establish lifestyle, right? Because I think it's really easy for people to go, oh, well, I need $100 million. Yeah. But people don't really know what that means, right? It's kind of like listening to the news. Oh, we gave $1 billion to so-and-so. Well, it doesn't sound like much when you say $1 billion, but it's a lot of money. Like that's a lot of money. And so, so in my own life, I did this. Actually, I think it's Tony Robbins has like a free app or something that you can do this little exercise in, right? Cool. It'll do some rough math for you. So you just plug in what you want, a house, what you think that costs, a car, what you think that costs, whatever it is you want. And I put together kind of this, it's a nice life, but it's nothing too fancy. It's like a regular house and then a small house in another country, a fancy sports car, and then just sort of some stability around bills, right? And so in my head, I had put down, oh, I need like 20 million bucks in the bank. And but after doing the calculations in his system, it said basically, well, you need like 4.25 for the rest of your life. So it's like, I mean, now granted, 4.25 million is not peanuts.
It's not. But it's
infinitely more achievable.
It isn't
100 million.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the goal is also, it's all we're talking about now, a little bit of goal setting too. If you set a goal and you're not I mean, there's so many ways to set goals, but like one of the things I've always learned about setting goals is they're setting a scary goal that still excites you. It's just scary. And then they're setting a goal that's so audacious that you have no feeling towards it because it's not real. You don't even make it real for yourself. You'll never achieve it. And that's the thing is like Tony Robbins, talking about Tony Robbins. What does he say? We overestimate what we can do 1 year. We underestimate what we can do 5 years. We overachieve. We overwrite our goals, what we think we can achieve in 1 year. And we don't actually write goals that little micro goals that we can achieve and watch our success, right? We have just one big goal, but we have no idea of how to get to the goal. A goal is fine, but do you have a plan for the goal? Do you have a plan, the steps on how you're going to get to the goal? So sure, it's 4.5 million. Okay, great. Now we've established that I need 4.5 million. What's the plan? Not the goal. What's the plan, the strategy for you to get there? How are you going to acquire that? How are you going to earn that income? What are you going to invest in? All these things that, again, people are not, it's not rocket science. None of this stuff is rocket science. Shit, ChatGPT will help you. Just go in and start having ChatGPT. You'll have a better chance of figuring that out. Ryan was actually
telling me about his morning using ChatGPT and programming this morning.
I became a web developer this morning using ChatGPT.
You did, yeah. There you go, right? Don't underestimate that, man. So, AI. Talk about trends.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I literally was able to spin up an application with APIs and a backend server all running and working, and did it entirely with ChatGPT. Just
you know what's so funny?
I need the programming for this page. I need blah blah blah, and I was able to build it. It's pretty wild.
You know what's so funny about ChatGPT 3? People don't, or whatever, I don't care. Cloud is, call it AI. Only like 15% of Americans are using it right now.
Yeah.
I live in a world where if you're not basically on our team, we did this last year. We said if you're not using this, you're going to get fired. Basically, ridiculous that you wouldn't be using such a tool like this, right? But I still meet people today that don't even they think it's something and it's not. Like they think going into ChatGPT is like building a website or something. They're like, "How do you use it?" I'm like, how do you go on Google and type in what is on Google? That's the same thing, right? They don't understand it because again, they've shut their brains. It's just scary. We live in this world, right, where we only want to live in what we can see, not what we can't see. And like, I know great, like I right now going through my transition is interesting. This is going to be all documented. I can't wait to listen to this in 20 years. I'm going through my transition where I'm asking the question is like, what can't I see? I don't care about what I can see. I want to know what I can't see. I want to start I'm asking people, what are the questions that I'm not asking? Because that's what we know. That's not only where greatness, they say your own comfort zone is, but that's like, not just where greatness is developed, but that's where like the new life, the new version of you, that's where opportunity and abundance and this higher being, I believe, is. And we don't know it. If we don't even tap into or even start realizing it, you're just going to live this life of what you think you know. Yeah. Well, and I know that I know nothing. It's nothing.
When you start going down the education path, and listening to audiobooks, listening to podcasts, listening to, studying a topic and trying to get better at it, like whatever the topic is, whether math, audio engineering, software development, whatever, you don't know what you don't know until you learn it. And once you learn it, then the sky's the limit. And it's just a matter of picking a topic and picking something that is relevant to you, means something to you, and you enjoy. And once you figure that out and you can, going to college, when I went back to college for audio engineering, it was like I was excited to get up every morning and go to class. I was excited to what I was going to learn that day. Whereas before, when I was taking generals and didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't know the path I wanted to go down, getting up was a slog. I'd sleep through class, it barely do the bare minimum. It was just pointless. And when you have a purpose and when you have that bullseye to aim for,
the burning desire,
changes everything.
It completely changes everything. One of the things I wrote this down. I think I don't know how we can get into it. I don't want to transition too much, but
sure.
We're talking about because you're talking about. I know we're trying to like applicable things. Like where like as an entrepreneur, how can people actually do things or change things in their lives? Are you familiar with like the be do have concept?
I've
no,
heard it before. I haven't studied it.
Yeah. So the idea of like, if, like a little circle, big circle, circle around and then bigger circle around it, right? So the biggest circle is have, the medium circle is do, and then in the core is like you become, right? Yeah. What most people live, and I've learned this because I was that person, is once I have X, then I'm going to do X, and then I become X. The key in success in business and life, it's flipped. It's I have become this, and as a result of becoming this, I'm doing the things of this, and because I'm doing the things of this, I now have.
Yeah. No,
so that's the whole people wait. People wait till you have to do. So I'm going to wait to be a better man for my kids and my wife and my health once my business is at a level. So then I have that time to do that. Bullshit. You don't need money. We were talking about happiness, talking about what you want in your life. That's why it all came up. But you don't need money to be a great husband. You don't need money to be a great father, a great mother. That's a decision you can make today. I was talking to a woman earlier today that wanted to lose weight. I know nothing about losing weight, so I want to be very clear on this. But it just same thing, and I could tell in her energy in her eye that losing weight was just an idea. It wasn't something she was actually committed to. And because I kind of related to smokers. You'll ever meet someone who quit smoking, they'll tell you right away, it wasn't a patch. It wasn't hypnotism. It was they woke up one day and they decided they're no longer a smoker trying to quit. They're just not a smoker. It's a self-identity. I'm no longer a fat person trying to lose weight. I am not fat.
Right. Yeah, no, I think there's something to this in that, and I've sort of attributed it to fear.
Sure, it's already not trying to be rude.
No, you're great. Yeah. But I think that there's this thing that people do, which is basically saying stuff feels like doing stuff. Yeah. So, like to your point about this woman that you were just talking to, so she was saying, "I want to lose weight."
Yeah,
and saying, "I want to lose weight," stating my intention, putting this thing out there, feels like I've done something. Right. So now at the end of the day, I can go, oh, you know what? I said I was going to lose weight today. That's awesome. Yeah. I did my thing, whatever it was. And then tomorrow I'll do the same thing. I'll tell everybody I'm going to lose weight again. And that'll be my thing. And I'll get my little positive affirmation from the person who goes, oh, hey, great job, Wendy. That's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it for you. So I'm getting my satisfaction, or I'm creating this loop by simply saying a thing. And then I'm getting feedback on it. Again, not to rag on social media, but I think this is a lot of social media too. We say a thing, or we go post on Twitter or X or whatever it is. We go and we post because we feel like we've done a thing. Yeah, to Mike's point, exactly. Hey, big thing coming around the corner. Pay attention. Huge.
It never come, but which never.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Right? But I said there was a big thing, so I've done something. Right. I've gone out and I've announced our big thing. Now what's the big thing? I don't know. We'll figure it out another time. But it's like, and so I think that there's something to that, and it has to do with mindset and all this other stuff. But I think that we trick ourselves into thinking we're doing something. And I think it's a little bit of this idea of kicking stuff down the road, right? Yeah. We never actually have to commit. We never have to do the scary thing. We never have to do anything. We can just kind of say stuff and keep kicking it down the road. And it feels like we're doing work.
Well, I always ask people, I don't care how busy you are, is how productive are you?
Yeah.
And the most successful people aren't busy. They're productive.
Yeah.
Well, you can.
Yeah,
you
and
can
I can say
busy
doing what?
Day,
doing things that don't serve you.
If you don't accomplish anything, if you're just checking email to check email, then
that's not working
with a purpose.
Yeah.
Well, and I can share sort of from a life experience or what's going on right now in my life. I can sort of speak to this a little bit, which is that I've taken a role. I mean, I run a design agency. We've been in business 20 years. This is the thing we do. But out of, I got involved early with a tech startup, and now they've asked me to sort of come on full time in this capacity of product manager, director of product management / VP, kind of whatever. And so I'm doing this thing, and I'm overseeing a couple departments. Well, I've never built software, and this is a tech company. I've designed software, I've designed UIs and things like that, but I've never, built software. But now I'm being asked to run a team of developers. I've never ran a product team, but now I'm being asked to run a team of product, folks. And then I've never done, I've run marketing. And so I'm also running the marketing team on their team. And so now I'm doing all this stuff. And what I'm finding is that, and for me, this is a measure that stuff is happening or that I'm learning, is that I'm exhausted at the end of every day.
Yeah.
And so when I was just doing the agency, and I've been doing it for all these years, you fall into your moves, right? These are the things we do. This is how we do business, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really register, right? I mean, like, it doesn't take it out of you, I guess I should say.
Well, no, because it became your genius.
Yeah,
your
well, I've developed the skills for that, and it's easy for me to do, right?
Yeah.
So to sort of, many of points we've made throughout this conversation, this has really pushed me into a new realm where I'm having to learn a lot of new things. I'm having to manage people that are supposed to be expert in stuff that I'm not expert in. I'm supposed to, be, learning how to do all this really technical stuff that I've never had to do before. And I'm finding it's really rewarding, but to the point that Mike was just making about just doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff, I don't have the knowledge enough yet to know if what I'm doing is actually useful, right? But what I do know is that I've got some short-term goals and some long-term goals that, for me involved in this entity, I have some incentives to accomplish. So if I can actually get it done, like, it'll be really great for me. And so I'm having to try and set goals around something I don't understand, right? But so this concept of thrashing and making sure that we're being productive, not for productivity's sake, but working against something, or actually putting it towards a goal, goes back to what you were talking about earlier, which is, sort of establish what is real and then work backwards from there versus, sort of just putting out into the environment. Oh yeah, no, I'm building an app. I'm building a thing. It's really cool.
A good exercise you could do, because I've gone, again, a lot of business coaching, and this one, I dread this exercise, but it's really show you what's going on in your life, is for 2 weeks, you just take a toll of what you're doing every 15 minutes.
Ouch.
Every 15 minutes, you write down what you're doing. And over 2 weeks, you go look at that, and then you ask yourself, is that the activities of whatever, your position is, of a $10 million person, $100 million person, and you'll see very quickly a lot of those activities could be outsourced. Get your time back.
Yeah.
And then you saying you don't know if you're doing well or not, but then you said you said you have goals. Like, well, if you don't have KPIs, a lot of people don't even know what a KPI is, but like, if you got to have something to measure. What doesn't get measured doesn't get improved.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to have measures that you have, and mini goals. Not like, hey, I want to do $1 million this year and this. No, like weekly, right? Weekly, monthly, daily goals that you have. And are you meeting those goals? It's very simple. Yes or no. There's no yeah, but. Mm-hmm. If it's a yeah, but, it's a no in my eyes. Yeah. It's a yes or no. Did you meet this goal? Yes or no?
Yeah, but I didn't exactly.
Yeah. I kind of, but we did not. Yes or no?
Yeah. I kind of want to change topics for a second.
Yeah.
I was listening to this podcast the other day. I think it was the Prof G podcast or Pivot, one of the two, and they were interviewing this guy about talking to people, just having conversations, and how the upcoming generation is so used to everything being online, and with COVID and with everything that happened where we got locked down and we couldn't go out and interact, there's kind of like this almost upcoming generation of kids that don't know how to talk to people. And in college, connect, even have just basic conversations. And they're to the point where in some colleges, they're actually having like classes to teach people how to talk, how to have conversations. And in sales, I mean, that's a critical thing. You have to be able to meet a stranger and have an hour-long conversation with them like we're doing right here. Do you have any insights on striking up that conversation, getting for some people, just knocking on a door and talking to a stranger is the scariest thing on earth. Can you maybe...
I mean, there's two different things, right? At that point, like if someone has a way of telling someone some certain secret sauce to get them to strike up a conversation, good on them. Like, I call bullshit on it. At some point, you just got to do it. Again, It comes down to just doing that. But when you do that, so I want to talk about when you jump, what happens then? Well, in sales, I'll tell you this is when you put yourself first, you'll end up on the bottom. When you put your prospect first, you always end up on top. Yep. Just in a conversation, normal, everyday conversation, if you make it about you, you will lose the conversation. If you make it about them, you will win. He who asks the questions controls the conversations. If you're not getting the results you want, 10x your questions. So what does that mean? How do we bring that to the everyday person? How do we bring these to these college kids that are learning how to have conversations? Well, ask questions, get curious. Don't be selfish. Don't make it about you. It's not about you. It's about them. Don't think it's all about you. You know, the saying I love, I've heard this saying so many times. I love it. And at 20 years old, we care about what everyone's thinking about, right? We care about what everyone thinks about us. At 40 years old, we stop caring what other people think about us. And at 60, we realize no one actually gave a fucking shit. Right? So like, these are things I learned. We laugh at these. There's a difference between me and other people. Most people laugh at this and they forget about that and they move on their life. I don't. Like, that sits with me. That's something I think about all the time. So when I find myself in fear of judgment, or I find myself worried about what other people think, that's what I remember. Is this really going to matter at 60? And I don't need to be 60 to know that answer. I'm pretty smart to know that, like, absolutely not. So those things, it prevents me to actually do the shit I need to do in the day and actually do the things that scare me. Back to connecting. I kind of got off side here. Back to having the conversation. It's sad. It's sad. It really is. It is sad because I'll tell you, even myself, I used to be like 99% extroverted, and because of like I don't even talk about it, but because of that, like, I've found myself going even more introverted than ever. And maybe because I'm getting older in life or anything, but like, it's even for me, it's not as like I used to be. Like, I had to be out all the time. Now I get exhausted when I'm out. But if you want to connect and have great conversations with people, the most simplest form I can say is you make it about them and you get curious. Ask questions. Just ask questions. Most people get nervous. So what do? We talk. It's a tick that happens. We just talk. Stop talking. I tell my sales guy this: the less you talk, the more you sell.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, right? I mean, we probably talk just to keep people from saying something that might hurt our feelings or whatever, right? So we're doing it as like almost a defense mechanism, really.
Or the other one, which is even deeper, is we talk because we fear silence. Exactly. We're not even comfortable ourselves in our own silence, let alone a silence now with two other people.
That 3-second, 4-second pause of nothing, that gets people kind of like twitching and nervous, and they got to say something, and being able to be comfortable in that silence is, I think, imperative, especially in sales in general, because if you're asking an open-ended question, you don't want to be the first one to reply. You want them to think about it and have an answer, and then you can spin off of that and go from there. But
absolutely,
just having the ability to sit in silence and think about it. Lots of people, they'll, like in a conversation like this, for example, they're just talking for the sake of talking. They're not listening to what the other person's saying. And when you listen and you have intent and you can pause and think about a response, it makes the conversation that much better. It's not just.
So as my wife always says to me when we're fighting, I'm listening to respond. I'm not listening to hear.
Exactly.
And those are that's what you just said, Mike. There's two very different things. You're right. People are just listening and thinking about in their head what the next question is going to be. They're not actually listening. Now, here's the key in sales. If you get to a deeper level, my advanced stuff is you don't listen to what they're saying. You listen to what they're not saying.
Exactly.
That's how you can connect deeper.
That's why. So the other day, I'm working with a band, right? And I've got this guitar player that in live scenarios, he loves to shred and just get really loud and be the center of attention. And he doesn't realize that when he turns his guitar up, it ruins my mix. And it makes it sound like here's this screaming guitar over here, and everything I've done is now just out the window because all you can hear is him. And I just finished a recording with him, and we were doing some final stuff, and he came in, and I was trying to broach this topic of how do I get this feedback and criticism to him and say, hey, I need you to kind of do this in live scenarios. And I told it to him, and I knew it was going to bug him, and I knew it was going to be an issue. And he goes home, and sure enough, an hour later, I get a text message. Yeah, everything you just said was bullshit. It's not rock and roll. It's not this. It's not that. And so for 2 days, I'm sitting here going back and forth, texting him all the technicalities of why you need to do this, why you should do that, why it makes a difference for us. And, if you want a better quality product in the end, yada, 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 it's like, and text message, it just didn't work.
So
finally, I just got on the phone and I called him and I said, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to talk this through like adults and we're going to figure this out, because obviously I need this and you don't want to give it, and you want this and we just need to hash this out. And within 15 minutes, it was hashed out. We had a kind of like a game plan. I could feel off his body language and tone in his voice. Whereas with a text message, I could be trying to be like, this is not my intent. I'm not trying to piss you off, but it's going across that way. Whereas if you jump on the phone, you have a conversation, or even better, do it in person over a beer, you're going to have that much more connection and that much more empathy for each other versus just a text message, waiting for a reply.
So it's funny you say that, because that was like, now in my life, like if I even sense for it, millimeter of energy that anything could get misunderstood, like because of text, I call the person.
Exactly.
Because you could sit there and waste time, money, and energy going back and forth, trying to figure, no matter, even if you're trying to have all the good intent, it doesn't matter what you say. It matters about how they perceive what you say. Most people don't. I said it this way. I had all the good intent. I said it, so it doesn't matter. You clearly take responsibility. You clearly didn't say it in a way that they understood it and perceived it the way they needed to perceive it, right?
Yeah.
So that's a huge one. I want to talk to you about something else, though, because this is what you said to me is like, I thoroughly believe in sales and in life is everything you get is direct reflection of the results of what's going on the inside. So if you don't like the results in the outside, it's not the outside's fault; it's the inside's fault. Now you had a hard time with this person. Why? Because look at what you're already. So sales is a transference of energy and connection. Communication is a transference of energy and connection. Your energy was already wrong. Your energy was already coming from a place of, he's going to take it wrong. He's going to have a hard time with this. It's not going to work. So think about this. Just think about this. The moment I'm breaking this down, right? I'm not right or wrong. Just play with me for a bit. The moment you come from that energy, so the first word, the first thought you have, where is that coming from? Is that coming from a place of collaboration, or is that coming from a place of, I'm already going to be defensive? Even though you cognitively want to have resolution, and you cognitively want to make sure that this is good and you want everyone to be happy, it doesn't matter, because the core being, which nobody wants to address, the underlying energy, right at the core was, this is going to be challenging. This guy's going to complain and all of that. But if you change that energy, I guaranteed you would have had changed results.
So me out of everyone was the person that needed to have this conversation with this kid, because other sound guys in town have tried, other people have tried, and I have this kind of relationship built up with him where we're more coming as a friend versus coming as sound guy who he's never met, who is just telling him he's too loud. And so I've known he's had issues with this in the past with other guys.
Funny, Mike. I got to cut you off here. Here because we're going to do this. We're live. We got to cut you off here. You're already justifying. You just made this all about him. This guy already hit this. I just said to you, you are a direct reflection of the results you got. So, he's already did.
But I got the results in the end.
You did. I'm being cheeky. You did get the results you in. But what I'm trying to teach people is, imagine what happens when we come from foundationally, everything we do, everything we say, our intentions, everything we put out to the world comes from a different place, comes from the actual place of what we want, not what we think we want or what we hope to get when we have all this residual effect of, residual thoughts of something else. Like, I want to be rich, but deep down, I'm not worthy of being rich.
Yeah.
What decisions are you going to be making to become rich? You're going to make decisions that are going to make you rich, or you're going to make decisions that are going to sabotage you from being rich because deep down you don't believe you're worthy of it. I'm not saying this is you, Mike. I'm changing the subject here. I'm not. Yeah, like this. This is what I'm talking about. So I always tell people in sales, in business, in life, it starts with you.
Yeah.
Like, it's not about the tactics. It's not about give me the best script. How do I connect with this person? If you're not connected with you and you don't believe in you and if you haven't done the hard work on you to grow as an individual and to believe that you are worthy of it, believe that you are worthy of success, know that fear will always be there, but it's how you handle it and how you deal with it and how quickly you deal with it is a deterrent, is the decision between success or not. Like I always say this to people, like Tony Robbins and you and I all wake up with the exact same fears. The difference is in the morning, Tony doesn't let that fear dictate the decisions he makes throughout the day, where most people do. Most people wait an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Most people don't even realize that they're operating out of fear. The quicker the distance between left and right, the distance between you being able to handle that voice and handle that fear is the distance between you having success. Plain and simple.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think if I've got the point that you're trying to make about in Mike's case, I mean, obviously Mike had a relationship with this guy, and so he was able to kind of work with it. But to your point about sort of predisposition setting, right? Mike already knew this guy's had trouble with other people. He's already, he pushed back, man. It's not rock and roll, like all that stuff. Yeah. So Mike was going into it maybe with that stuff couched a little bit. So he's okay,
exactly. Yeah,
I'm going to treat you as somebody who's had to overcome these things, and I'm going to talk to you in a way because we're friendly.
Yeah. Well, part of
that's how Mike was maybe able to get his end result.
Was like, I told him, I was like, I need to be able to have a conversation with you, and I need to be able to provide feedback and not have you take it critically. I can't have you walking on eggshells when I'm working with you, because my input and your input is critical to getting a good end product. And when I approached him, I went up to him and I said, hey, have you ever thought of using in-ear monitors? And he's like, nah. And I'm like, you should try it. I think if you had in-ear monitors, you could totally rock out and have it loud like you want it, but I could still control the mix. And I came in with kind of like a solution before addressing the issue. And so that was, anyways, it was the most recent thing I've had to have like that in that kind of realm as far as a difficult conversation or something to overcome. And that's why it was top of mind. So it could be in any type of field of, overcoming an objection, overcoming not a hostile conversation, but learning how to have that conversation and not
I lost him.
I think we lost him.
Well, here we're starting to get to the end here, Kayvon. But do you have just a couple minutes that I could have you get into one more quick topic?
Absolutely.
Probably not quick, and maybe we need to have a longer conversation about it.
I also want to make sure people know that I love Mike, and I was just giving him a hard time because we're here. So Mike, we love you.
Yeah. So what I want to talk about, and you actually touched on this really early in the conversation. I made a note here to talk about it, but you just sort of landed on it again. And so it seems like something that maybe is important to you, which is this idea of sort of overcoming biases or the pre-programming that we get from other people in our lives and sort of help dictate the way that we approach sales, approach business, approach life, whatever it is. But there's a thing that seems to happen. And the example you used earlier was that it had to sort of do with your parents or maybe trying to live up to your parents' expectation. And so there's this bit there where we're sort of in our parents' shadow, or maybe whoever raised us, or maybe some influential friend or whomever, but we're sort of in their shadow, or we sort of act in a certain way to try and accomplish whatever it is that we think they would want. Right. And so this goes back to our earlier discussion about dreams and stuff like that. Well, you just sort of landed on that again with this conversation with Mike, right? And that what you're really trying to overcome is what's inside you, and then you'll be better equipped to deal with the outside world, right? And so I wondered if, just sort of in closing here, I mean, I realize this could probably be a whole podcast in itself, but, do you have any pointers or any ideas or things that people can use to maybe self-identify? Am I living under the shadow of somebody else?
Yeah, I think before you can even self-identify that, I think you got to educate yourself on knowing, like, where does all this come from? Meaning, like, from 0 to 6, science proves this isn't foo-foo anything. This is, there's when your subconscious is born. Like the most of what the decisions people make at 40 or at 50, at 60, 80, or 20, whatever age you're at, they're making them from your 0 to 6. They're making them from your 6-year-old self. Most people don't even know that. So like first is go do the research and understand where your subconscious comes from and how all the stuff that happens in the world today, all the marketing we're having, I want to get into all the political stuff that's happening. All that is brainwashing our subconscious, not your conscious, your subconscious, to think, act, and do in a fashion that the power above, whatever you want to be, the people in power want you to be. So like, if you can't even accept that, it doesn't matter. Like if you don't understand that that's actually a real thing that's happening, then anything I tell you after this doesn't matter because you're closed mind to it, right? Growth mindset, fixed mindset, the whole thing, you're shut off to it. Now, if you're going, yeah, I believe that to be true. Okay, great. So now probably go do the work and figure out how was your upbringing? Like what were the values that were given to you? What were the things like when like that you're I will never change this. Write those things. This is exactly who I am. Write those things down and ask yourself, whose idea was that? Where did you get that idea? Is that mom's? Is that dad's? Do you like that idea? Do you only like that idea because mom made you? You know, dad put their bullshit, their generational bullshit onto you, right? And that's called deep work, right? As you know,
there's a concept of that somebody told me about, or actually this guy Chris Doe talked to me about. It's more to do with negative self-talk and things like that. But there's this thing called the critical inner voice.
Yeah.
And basically the concept is that a lot of times when you're tearing yourself down, you could hear it in somebody else's voice, a parent or a friend or an enemy or something.
Yeah.
And like I know people who, were maybe given a hard time as a kid, because of their weight or something. And then they see that person 30, 40, 50 years later, and it still triggers that feeling, right? That emotion. And so every time they look in the mirror and they go, oh, well, I don't look good in a swimsuit. It's because their mom said, hey, you don't look good in a swimsuit back when they were a kid or something.
Yeah.
And some of that's us imposing it maybe on a parent, or that's how we took our parents' vibe. But to your point, the way we're making decisions in a lot of cases is, maybe not our own voice, but we're behaving in a way that we were sort of taught early on.
So programmed
I think your point, being aware, and in the reading I did on this idea of negative self-talk and critical inner voice, a big part of it really is being aware that it's a thing, and then understanding that you can change it. You don't have to live with it that way.
Yeah, it's most people are not aware. Most people don't even want to identify it. That's the first problem. Then now that you're becoming aware, now you just ask the questions, how do you change it? And it doesn't happen overnight either, right? It's just, again, it's being open. It's being open to the fact that like there is a fact that most people are living from their 6-year-old self, making decisions, whether they know that to be true or not. It's what's happening. It's subconsciously what's happening, and that there's ways that you can actually fix that and you can work on those things. It's a phenomenon. I've been working on myself since 22, 23. I got my very actually got into self-development and working on myself, and that, over 25 years, and I still have a lot to go. I'll tell you that much, a lot to go. But it's knowing that, and it's being able to be okay with that as well. A little self-love and self-compassion goes a long way.
Well, and it's not unlike what Mike was talking about in his conversation with this guitar player, right? And giving critical information, right? I mean, we might hear in our voice the critical comment of a parent or whomever, but I don't know. I guess if you know that's what it is, just like, Mike knew how this guy was going to react when he said, hey, dude, you got to turn down your guitar. We have this, I guess, just by simply being aware, we can now prepare ourselves to respond to it, right? So I can hear that voice in my head and go, oh, well, this voice told me that that's a bad decision. But conscious me, is going, you know what, though, I think you're wrong, and sorry, Mom, but this time I'm going to go do the thing I want to do.
I try to tell people this is when you're approaching things, it's very hard, is you approach, I try to bring no energy to them, and definitely not a bias energy or, any bias energy to it. And you'll see that the results are very different. But I tell people, when I used to live life with expectations, I used to have expectations. Everything I did, going out on a Friday night, I had an expectation it was going to go a certain way. When I was a little kid, hanging out over here, going to a week vacation there, whatever it was, going to the gym today. I had all these little micro expectations or sometimes macro expectations, and I always felt let down. I always felt like I was always kind of miserable because things just didn't go my way. I now live a life, I truly live a life. I have zero expectations, 100% commitment.
Yeah.
And I've been happier than ever. And I enjoy life way better than I've ever have. Because I don't have expectations of things. And I'm not saying negative. I'm not saying, oh, I'm expecting negative things to happen. It's just zero. I'm just going to be. It's going to be whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I'm not going to expect things to happen, because when they don't go happen, that's when we start, beating ourselves up or getting frustrated and all this negative shit that does not serve us. Does not serve our future, does not serve our present, does not serve our past, does not serve our family, our friends, our business, none of that. You're direct, show me someone's business, show me the entrepreneur. Yeah. The entrepreneur is only as far, the business is only as good as the entrepreneur is, until obviously the business gets to a level where the owner or the person who started the business is no longer there. That's like why we are in a business where we're amping up, where we want to work with people. One of our ICPs is where we work with people who are not founder-led anymore. Because founder-led organizations make different decisions than ones that don't.
Yeah, no,
because the founder makes decisions on his money, because it is his money. He makes decisions on all the hard past shit he had to go through that got him there.
Yep,
that makes sense.
I think you're right.
Well,
sorry, what was that?
Oh, I just said I think you're right.
No, I know you said that. That's a trick, by the way, called double confirmation.
Oh,
well, and with my internet jumping in and out, I totally could have been whatever.
Everything's been double confirmation for poor Mike.
Well, we're kind of at that point. You want to tell people how they can get in touch with you and how they can reach out if they're interested in talking with you?
Very simple. If you're interested in anything to do with sales, all things sales, Kayvon.com, Kayvon.com. From there, you can get anywhere you need to go to find me.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Kayvon. This has been an awesome conversation. I appreciate your time.
Nice meeting you guys. Yeah, appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much to everybody who tunes in this week and every week. We'll catch you guys next time.